Domestic violence remains a pressing issue in Nigeria, but concerted effort can be instigated to change and create a society free from violence. Today we'll be addressing the root causes, implementing legislation, raising awareness, and establishing support services and fostering economic empowerment. To discuss all of this with us, we have Haashim Adamu. He's the program manager, Trueneed Stage Empowerment Foundation. Thank you so much for being part of the program. And I am excited. You are a man talking about gender-based violence.
Yeah. You took it out of my mouth. Haashim, many thanks for being on Asamoah. And I was going to say, normally you usually have women, you know, that talk about gender-based violence. And then, of course, the guest before us was talking about ensuring that women achieve their full potential. So part of what we said was, it's about time we start to get the men involved in the conversation. And then, look, you're getting involved in gender-based violence, which is awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Gender-based violence is almost as old as mankind itself. And unfortunately, maybe it's because we have more information out there, we seem to see a lot more reports about it. Most gender-based violence, even though I agree that it's not only men that abuse women, there are also female abusers. However, statistics shows that most gender-based violence are perpetrated by men over or against women. And you're an advocate against it. How and what should be the message? What makes people, first of all, be aggressive to, in every religion, we say a woman is a weaker vessel. It's in the Quran, it's in the Bible. A woman is a weaker vessel, and I believe anybody or anything that is weaker means you should handle with care and, you know, as fragile, but we're not seeing a lot of it. So what pushes people, especially men, to be violent against women, especially in the domestic front? That should be your safe haven. That's where they're fighting you and they're killing you.
Thank you so much once again for having me. Firstly, I want to start with appreciating the fact that you established that gender-based violence is not based solely on women being abused by men, but the fact that men can also be abused by women. So it's very important to establish that fact. Now, back to your question, I think the major thing why we see that women are being abused, especially domestic abuse by men, is the fact that men over time tend to see that they are more like the economic support of women out there. They are more like the ones providing the needs of the house. So, and in return, that's the way we are trying to address this issue, is the fact that we see that we empower women to have this alternative livelihood. So even if they are abused by men, they have this, okay, I can be on my own, I can stand on my own, they can report. So men over time abuse women because they feel like, I go out there, I source for the finance, I bring the food home, I do everything. So she should be answerable to me in all forms. You understand? So it's more like I'm like the
alpha,
like
and
alpha,
omega, the head and not the neck.
So even when he is abusing this woman at home, she don't want to report because out there is so hard, as she may perceive, like she may feel like, okay, what if I leave my home? How am I going to survive and all that? So I think economic issue is so important, and if you want to address gender-based violence, let's start by addressing the root cause of poverty. Why are women actually poor? Because personally, I feel like it takes double effort for a woman out there to get economic opportunities than a man out there.
Some people argue that it's the other way around.
No.
The people who argue that, first, I'm a broadcaster, so I would like to balance it, you know, on both sides of the fence. Some people who argue that it's easier. Let me give you a simple scenario. Urgent 2K. I can call you and ask for urgent 2K.
But those are not sustainable finance.
They're not sustainable finances. But I feel that some people feel that, you know, women may have more economic opportunities than men. Also, we have had scenarios where there are women who are financially buoyant, who are actually the breadwinners of their homes. And then you find men who just don't know how to deal with it. And the woman will still bring the bread and then the butter and still get beaten on top of it. And I'm sure you've had cases like that too.
Definitely.
So is it just economic lack of economic empowerment that triggers this, or just someone who's not properly screwed?
Yeah, sometimes I want to buy that word, someone who is not properly screwed, but then I feel like sometimes social norms play a very important factor in addressing this issue. I also like the fact that you establish religion and other factors that influence gender-based violence. It's so true, but then I think across board, if we look at, for example, as a Muslim, I want to bring the Muslim perspective. There are women out there who are so buoyant financially. For example, the first wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she's financially buoyant.
She was very buoyant.
Yeah,
yes.
very buoyant. Yeah. So across board, we have even the wife of King Solomon, Bilqis. She's financially buoyant and all. So sometimes it's this social norms, these factors that there's this perception, this stereotype that women are weaker versus. And then if we don't advocate, if we don't promote the rights of women, I think they are going to be somehow, even not economically, but due to social norms, they are going to be abusing one way or the other.
Okay. Let's talk about punitive measures that ideally should deter anybody trying to mate any violence on the other. Do you think we've done enough apprehending, prosecuting those who have over the years been doing this?
No. Personally, I don't think we've done enough. And one thing I always advocate also is the fact that not just apprehending and punishing these people, I think it's also important to establish like a safeguarding policy, like women can feel free to come and report if these things are happening, right? And also when they report, we should have like an alternative for them. Okay, if you're scared of going back home, this is where you should be pending.
Shelter.
Pending when we resolve this issue. I also think it's important to have like psychosocial support, because this actually affects their mental health.
Exactly.
So I want us to look at it not just by litigation, prosecution, but the victims. What are the provisions we have for them? Of course, we are not doing so much in terms of prosecuting and punishing these people. But then, if you are not free to come and report, who do we apprehend then? Who do we catch to prosecute and all? So let's start by addressing the issue of reporting. Do we have like a safe line where they can just call? Maybe anonymously, this thing is happening in XYZ location, and you investigate, you find out what's the shelter, provision, and social protection for her. Basically, what are the safeguarding for the victim that are abused?
Yeah, you did address how the government can start having more shelters. I know Abuja has some.
Yeah.
In Abuja, yes, they do.
Yeah.
They
Lagos
have
has
some.
some provisions.
But in other parts, yes, they do.
Yeah,
we
they
have,
do.
We have
You know why I'm
shelters.
asking this question?
Yeah.
I mean, Google, I can find out right now while we're sitting the show. How many women know this? That's why I say they do. You understand? Because how many women do know the shelter numbers? How many women do know where the shelter... for a fact, maybe because I don't have a need for it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. I'm a podcaster. I should know. I mean, I know where NNPC filling stations are now. I don't buy fuel in every one of them. You understand what I mean?
Yeah,
so I think, yes, in agreement with what she's saying, that do people actually even know that they have all these shelters and support places to go to?
Yeah, and basically I think they don't know to a large extent, and that's why I strongly believe that a lot of civil society organizations are trying to advocate for, okay, there are certain provisions for you like this, and in some institutions they have like a desk officer just focused on this matter.
Exactly.
So yeah, you can just go to walk into an institution, for example, police, for example, you can just go, they have units basically just on this, so you can just go to them, this, and they'll take it up.
Sorry, dear. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if the Trueneed Foundation has done anything in this advocacy and awareness as one of your initiatives.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, Trueneed Foundation has done a lot, but basically, like I said earlier, we try to focus more on the root cause. For example, the economic factor, right? That's one. And some other initiative, like I know that personally I'm a technical lead for the She Votes To campaign. And what the campaign is...
What campaign?
She Votes To.
She Votes.
Okay, she votes to. She also votes.
Votes,
She votes
exactly.
to. Okay,
so what this campaign is doing is just to amplify the voices of of young people, especially women and girls, that we also go out there, we vote, we cast our vote, and we have provisions.
Of course, you have a stake in the country.
Yeah. But then what this campaign did was to analyze the manifesto of these political parties and see, okay, what are the loopholes for women and girls? Let me give you one example. The campaign identified that our education policy is not sensitive to the needs of women. So you then tend to see things like menstrual hygiene management when you're talking about sexual reproductive health and rights. So a lot of initiatives are actually going on, but then usually they are tailored towards, I'm just telling you that she votes to tailored towards politics. Our Trueneed is tailored towards economic empowerment. So you can have another one towards inclusion, like let's bring them to the table. You also can speak. You have a right in this game. So there are a lot of initiatives, but Trueneed, basically we try to look at the economic factor that affects women generally.
How do you deal with shaming? Because I know when I say shaming, I know a lot of people, a lot of women who are actually going through domestic violence find it very difficult to talk about it. There's this stereotype that, okay, you have to be maybe uneducated or the problem is your fault. You know, it always comes back to the women. So you find out that even very influential women, even very educated people don't come out to say, look, I'm going through domestic violence in my home. And then at the same time, you also find out that sometimes even in the religious settings, when you do complain, it's easy for the pastor, the priest, the imam to say, go home and reconcile. You know, even in the police station, two are fighting, it's husband and wife, people should go back, you will settle. So and you also even have women like us condemning them. Where you going? It's your husband, I beg, go there. You want to leave, another woman will come in, you know, and you're dealing with enough. So how do we deal with this shame that certain people have to come out and either report a case or see that case to completion?
Okay, basically, I think one thing we can do is to try to provide like a reporting format, a framework that is going to be flexible for reporting. For example, some organizations, what they do in terms of their policy is they have this anonymous form you can report, maybe through their social media platform, or just say, okay, XYZ is suffering from this, that, you get. So sometimes you can even report this case, but not as yourself, like a third-party reporting, you understand? So I think women, basically, like this is my perception, that they don't want to report because they are scared of the discrimination out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So some tend to report later on, like
years. In retrospect.
When I was 9 years, when I was this, when I was, you know. So I think it's important if we can have that proper reporting mechanism. And this is not just the responsibility of the government, because one thing I strongly believe is that gender mainstreaming cuts across all levels, from our individual level, at local level, then organizational level, and of course the institutions. So if you are mainstreaming gender in all our activities, it's going to help actually in saying that our policies, our laws and programs are not just out there and effective, but are also preventive before these things occur.
One second, let's wrap up. What would be your advice to the government in terms of fighting? Like I said, this is an old problem, but we're hoping, and I feel maybe we're hearing more because social media is doing its own job too, and then maybe more reported now doesn't necessarily mean it's happening a lot more. What would be your 1 second, takeaway from this? And then that's your camera, and you're talking to the government like, these are the kind of policies we need to have in place to ensure that we don't cut it off completely, but we reduce it to its barest minimum. Okay, thank you so much. Well, first thing is to be gender sensitive, and secondly, mainstream gender in all your legislation. A good example from the president, SSG, speaker, Senate. These are men. How do you stand to legislate policies or issues that affect women? So basically bring them to the table. While you're having conversations that affect them, let them also be involved in this conversation. And finally, to the men out there, let the women know that you are not just standing behind them, or you will be in the front of them in advocating for gender. You will stand by them side by side as you promote and protect the rights of women out there. Thank you. Let the women breathe.
Let the women breathe. Don't suffocate them.
Let the women breathe. Thank you so much, Haashim Adamu, Program Manager, Trueneed Stage Empowerment Foundation, for being our guest this morning.
Nice. Thank you so much.
And then you're doing amazingly well. We need to hear more men like you, come out and then advocate for things that affect women. And I think if we have just 1/4 of people like you, it'll go a long way to changing society.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for what you do.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And then that's it. That's what we call a wrap this morning on ASO Morning. But it's been very interesting being with you, especially since we've been off the whole of last week, but excited to be back in the studio. So thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. I'm Ifunaya Yvonne Amathili.
And I am Joy Asonye, really excited to be back, and be rest assured we'll be back here tomorrow with so much more. Have a wonderful, blessed, productive day.